You're my new best friend. Oh boy. My name is Jeff. I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Where to begin? You know, it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you. It's an honor and a privilege to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and to be able to, and to be asked to share what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. The guy you see now, the man you see now, 21 years ago, was homeless, one shoe, a knapsack full of nothing, and a broken skateboard in the downtown east side of Vancouver. I get to wear a suit today. And I wear this suit out of respect to the first 100 men and women, to that old timer that carried the 12th step when I walked through that door, and to me. Renato, thank you for asking me to do this, buddy. I know that we have created, by the grace of a power greater than ourselves, and my sponsor, Mr. Marty J., who spoke here last year, we're going to have an extended relationship. I also want to thank Jill, wherever you are, for reaching out to me and getting me here safely, even though there were cancellations of a flight. And the next flight, they told me, I got to the airport on Friday, and they said, oh, your flight's been canceled. It got hit by lightning, et cetera, and just what I want to hear. We've rebooked you on a flight that's later in the afternoon, and I'm, okay, that's not going to work for me. You know, I pretended I was speaking Friday sort of thing, and no, I need to get there now. That's just how selfish and self-centered I am. And the airline worked it out, and I got here an hour later than what I was supposed to, so it worked out great. And then Renato met me at the airport, took me to the hotel, and for me this weekend started. I want to thank Graham for being the most perfect host. I want to take you home with me so you can keep doing what you're doing and let's continue this. And Sean, who stepped up when needed. And after this, my flight doesn't stop, or I don't leave until 9:30 tonight, and I don't want to relive 21 years ago in a suit, where I'm walking around a strange town, a beautiful town, not knowing what to do. So Sean's going to take this guy home, and we're just going to hang out and talk. And with his beautiful girlfriend as well, and the things we get to do today. This little rag here I keep with me all the time whenever I do stuff like this. And originally, so in 2018, the very first time when I did this, check this out. So I met Marty. I was 14 years sober, and I'll get into that part of my story a bit later. But after we went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had a massive new spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, you've got to watch out who sponsors you. Because as soon as I got my first new sponsee from those 12 steps, he said, what are you doing next Friday? I'm like, nothing. He goes, okay, pack your bag, go get a suit. You're the Friday night speaker at the Kamloops Roundup. And I'm like, what? I've never done this before. So it was kind of neat. But this has existed since then, and this was to wipe the sweat off my nose or my palms. Today it does that, but also today, Cliff, it holds my tears. They're already starting. This will be an emotional talk. Okay, it's not going to be my normal one. Because like Laura talked about today, in order for me to fit, to be a part of all of you, I got to let you in. Because I can go here for an hour and I can be funny and I can get book-based and I can recite pages and I can do this and that and sort of thing, but not really let you in. And now I'm blocked from the Son of the Spirit. I've got off that broad highway and onto this very rugged, lonely path and fake it. Today, recently, my life is extremely sensitive. And I'm not going to get into it too deeply. But I'm so grateful that this is happening this weekend. I have a house that just went on the market when I was in mid-flight, probably over Saskatchewan. I'm in a conscious uncoupling situation. And that's a very, very loving and polite way to say a separation. And what I've been taught by you people is to go to AA. Go to meetings. Do our 3 legacies. Pick up the phone marks. So me being here, you guys, is such a blessing. Because it takes me out of self. I also want to thank the rest of the committee. That, it takes a lot to put something like this on. It does. It takes a lot from all the way from buying water to the food, even to the restaurant that provided the food, all that kind of stuff. I'm truly grateful. Most importantly, I'm super grateful that when I walked through those stairs to get up onto this podium today, I heard Renato say, we're going to start early, half an hour. And this is the selfish and self-centeredness in me. Instead of starting at 2, we're going to start at 1:30. It's so close to 3, I get an hour and a half. I get an hour and a half. Look, no you don't. 59 minutes tops, Jeff, and trust me, I'm going to let you know. Yeah. So I'm not a stranger to a microphone anymore. And something happens to me. If you meet me outside of AA, I'll be the guy in the back of the room. Okay, like we talked about, I'll be okay. But I'm a little bit insecure, but I'm kind of okay. I'm not like sweating and super nervous, this nervous disposition sort of thing, right? But I'm quiet. I'm quiet. And it's kind of a good quiet. But you put me in a suit and tie, and you put a microphone in front of me, watch out, because there's going to be a lot coming at you. A lot, just because I love AA and I'm so passionate about life. I'm so passionate about that one person in this room that might have 24 hours. Can I please see a raise of hands of people that are in their first 30 days? So the people that aren't in their first 30 days, I hope you saw those hands. And let's go chat with these people after the meeting. And the reason why I say that, because it didn't happen for me until 7 years of sobriety. 7 years. Let's get this thing going. I'm going to start when I was 6 years old. Little Jeffrey. No booze. I was so tiny, so young, but the reason why I'm going to start there is because this is where my old beliefs and old ideas started to happen. Laura talked about it, Scott talked about it, Jane talked about it, the woman from Al-Anon talked about it. 6 years old, I went to the children's psych ward, the children's hospital in Vancouver for 2 weeks, not knowing why I was there. Knowing why I was going there. I didn't have any broken bones or nothing. But I was sent to the children's psych ward to go get dipped, poked, prodded, shaken, not stirred. There's something wrong with me. I was a part of my younger brother and my older brother. And a belief system started to happen, and I started to make up imaginary people, and it was a scary place for me. At 6 years old, this little guy. Moving into when I was 7 years old, same thing happened. My parents were asked by a guy named Dr. S to put me back in this children's psych ward for 2 weeks then. And that belief system or that insecurity or that loneliness would just resurfaced again. So I was different. What's wrong with me? Moving forward to when I was 13 years old, no, don't get me wrong, I had a really loving family. Like, I had a mom. I talked about my mom, my beautiful mom today. And then throughout my whole upbringing, and my dad, his name was Doug. Ever since he was little, when he was like a little Jeffrey, but a little Douglas, he had a nickname called Hoagie. His real name is Håkan. He's a Swedish Viking, this guy. This guy stood about 6'3", 230 pounds, piercing blue eyes, light hair, slick back. He was a man's man. He was my king. And they loved me. I have an older brother named Rick and a younger brother named Chris. And my family life was really, really good, except for this thing that I was going through. At the age of 13, so over there, I'm not sure what it's like here. We start kindergarten to grade 7, then it goes grade 8 to grade 10, junior high, and then senior high, grade 10 to grade 12. And I always wanted to be the guy that was like the captain of the football team, the guy that maybe had a girlfriend, the guy that had more than just 2 friends. At 8:36 in the morning on a Friday, I'll never forget it. I'm on my way. It was the first Friday, so I'm 4 days into this new school with hundreds of people. I got hit by this speeding car, and I did the end over my handlebars, and I landed on the ground. I picked myself up, just a little scrape on my knee, but I heard this smack in my brain. I had this thought, and this thought said, why are you alive? If you're just going to die anyway, it's of natural causes, whatever it may be, why am I alive? Let's bring the 6-year-old into this now. Let's bring the 7-year-old into this now. And let's bring into why am I alive? It put me into a very deep depressive state until I met you people. I didn't fit in. I didn't belong. I was made fun of because I have an all year round tan. My bike I picked up from the dumpster every single day for 4.5 years because of my older brother's sexual orientation of who and what he truly is. And I didn't know how to express this. If there's one thing I would change, and trust me, I wouldn't change anything, would be how my parents carried the message of a solution when differences of opinions happened. I never saw it. I know my mom and dad had difference of opinions, little smart arguments and stuff like that, but they never showed us. Everything was perfect. So when you have a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, or a 13-year-old that just doesn't want to live, and there's something wrong with them, and is so lonely and riddled with 100 forms of fear already, how do you become free from that? There's something wrong with me, and I needed relief. And I found it. And it wasn't booze. It was theater, drama, acting. And it saved me. It truly did. And how it saved me, how I know it did, is because for 1 hour a day, I got to be anyone, anywhere, and do anything to fake who and what I am. I got to put on this show. But when that class was over, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 13-year-old, it wasn't a pretty life for me, but inside myself. Theater stopped working, and I found the sport. It was skateboarding, and I fell in love with it because I was good at it. I learned a lot of things, and people wanted to see what I did, all this kind of stuff, and I knew it could have went somewhere, but it never did because I found alcohol. But here it comes. I was 17 years old, and I'm with one of my 2 friends, this guy named Steve, and we decided to try it out and see what this alcohol thing is all about, because we're hearing my older brother doing, even my younger brother was drinking, and other people were drinking. So somehow we got a hold of vodka and orange juice, and I'm staying at his house, he's staying at my house kind of scenario that we told our parents, and we got really sloppy. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it tasted. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like it. I lost the mechanics of my body, stumbling around. I didn't like that I slurred my voice. I didn't like it. But the very next day with a massive hangover, I knew I was going to do it again. And the do it again happened about a month later. So now I'm in senior high. And a month later, I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I get, Rockaberry Cooler, something like that, something because I didn't like the taste, so I needed something a little bit fruity, a little bit different sort of thing, and we proceeded to drink. And then I started to meet new people. So, guys that were kind of like me, and there was 10 of us. But I watched these guys drink. Man, look at these guys drink. And they drank and got really, really ugly. So I started to drink like them. And I had no idea about this phenomenon of craving or this mental obsession at all, right? And today, 10 guys, 2 of us are sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We hear in AA, man, my mom drinks half a glass of sherry and puts it down because she's starting to feel it. That boggles my mind. I'm like, does it really? But does it really? I get it. But does it really boggle our mind? It doesn't boggle my mind today. Because I know she's page 20. I might reference a couple pages of the big book, guys, just letting you know. But she's a moderate drinker. She has one drink and she gets up, she gets elevated to some sort of place that I'll just call it excitement. She starts to feel it. But then she stops, right? And her body goes down. She crashes a little bit. But then when she wakes up in the morning, she was right size. She's at par. She's good. She's okay. And she gets her day going. That's not me at all. I start to drink. I go up. I start to get elevated. And I'm just getting right-sized. I didn't start right-sized. I'm getting right-sized. And when I stop drinking, I crash, and I don't get back up. I just keep crashing, I keep crashing until I have that first drink again, and it brings me right back. I start to go back up to get to par. And par is insanely drunk. My mom's par is here. My par is here. Just so I can feel good inside my skin. That's one reason that qualifies me to be here. At the age of 18, my older brother, his ID expired, so I asked for his ID. He's like, no problem, here you go. Change the dates on it, how we used to do it, tape in a phone book, if you can remember what phone books used to be. And I would end up going bootlegging or being the guy that would get alcohol for all the 10 guys, and we started to go to bars. We started to see the nightlife of what Vancouver had to offer. And I loved it. I was missing out on so much stuff. The effect produced by alcohol, the effect produced by these shiny lights, the effect produced by music, the effect produced by all you people. It was so great. And I remember it was a Saturday night. I'm sitting in this very, very, very popular bar in downtown Vancouver, and I'm playing foosball, table soccer. I'm half cut. And I'm playing against this guy, this older gentleman. I'll just call him Timmy. I figured out halfway through that game that he's the owner of the bar, and I had this bright idea. And I said to him, I go, Timmy, if I beat you, you got to hire me. So he doesn't know I'm underage at all. And I beat him. And Sunday night I was slinging beers at the age of 18, legally, underage, in the bars, a beautiful nightclub full of 300 people. And I loved it. I got lit up and I got on fire. And one of the things we got to do there is get there at 8, doors open at 9, but by 8:01 we're already drinking. My drink of choice was 151, no Coke, no ice, nothing. That's it, just straight in a pint glass. And I had one of those before 9 o'clock every single night for 6 nights. I worked 6 nights a week. I had arrived. It was an alternative rock bar back then, and it was beautiful. The States, they'd have their holidays, the bar would be full on a Sunday, and I thought they're all there to see this guy, because so many people were coming to that front door to see me, to get in for free, obviously, and to get free drinks. That state of delusion. But I excelled at it, and I was good at it, and the alcohol made me not that isolated person, that little 6, 7, 13-year-old boy. It brought out something big and magnificent inside this guy. You know what it was like for me? I thought it was the guy off Studio 54. Yeah, I was on fire. And I was good at what I was doing, and this is how good I was. I got hired at 3 bars at the same time and worked at 3 bars the same night and pulled it off. How do you do that? Only an alcoholic Cliff can do that. How can you sling beers, be bar back, and go get stuff from corner stores from 3 different establishments within 5 hours? You know, but it was meant to be. I'm supposed to be drunk. I'm supposed to be doing this because look at me go. I'm 22 years old now, and I remember, you know what we hear in the meetings, and somewhere in our literature it might say that we crossed over this imaginary line. I know mine. I know it probably happened before this, but I had this experience where it's like only 10 o'clock, the doors have been open an hour. I am drunk. I am wasted. It's Tuesday night. It's a disco night or something like that, and I think ABBA came on, and all of a sudden I had this inclination of something you guys will not see me do today, and that's dance. It's one of my biggest fears, is dance in front of people. I can't even do it in the mirror. It's just not going to happen. I jumped over the bar, got into the dance floor, and I started moving to the music, moving to the lights, and I just felt so as one with all the patrons, the clients at that bar, and with King Alcohol, and with this God of spirit that I'm feeling. But then it's like when I got hit by that car, I stopped, I froze in my brain. That little snap, and this voice said to me, "Jeff, you are so drunk. You're being a disgrace to this establishment. Your boss is looking at you and shaking his head. You need to stop. You need to pick yourself off this dance floor, walk around behind the bar like a normal person, grab a glass of water, drink some of that cold coffee, get to work, finish your job, close up at 2:30, go home, wake up in the morning and reassess your life." So I did. Picked myself off out of the dance floor, went behind the bar, had a glass of water, a little bit of cold coffee, and one of you came up and ordered 2 beers and 2 shots. And I said, "No problem." I turned around and poured 4 beers and 4 shots, and I joined you. I didn't have a mental defense against that first drink. I've already riddled with the phenomenon of craving. But I remember that. But I persisted with this because this is the only lifestyle I knew. You know, I would travel. I'd go to Los Angeles and I'd get club courtesy at the Viper Room, or I'd go to Edmonton and get club courtesy there, or whatever it was. I was just that so important, and it was such a big part of my life that I thought this whole nightlife, this whole bar scene, this whole drinking thing was who and what I was. But it got me. Because when you're involved in a scene like that, other things are getting involved. And I know this is an Alcoholics Anonymous sort of thing going on here. But I needed to stay up for 6 nights. I needed to keep on drinking. I didn't want to pass out. You know, I didn't want to have these blackouts. I don't think I had one, at least I don't remember. But my life started to get bad. I started to miss things. I started to miss birthdays. I started to miss my beautiful mom's little birthday. I started to miss family gatherings. I started to not really be there, even though I was physically there at Christmas time. I started to miss all these kind of things because I would rather drink. I needed to drink than to do that. I had all this guilt, shame, remorse, morbid reflections. I had all this 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and 13-year-old still alive and well. I had all these defects of character, and the root of my problems were still within me, let alone drinking, and always getting drunk. In the late 90s, Hoagie, my dad, that Viking of a man, was diagnosed with cancer. What does someone with our variety or my variety do when you get news like that? No solution, no nothing. We need a sense of ease and comfort. We need to somehow get rid of these thoughts, these feelings of what's going to happen, all that kind of stuff, right? So I needed to drink, so I drank. And I'm not blaming that my dad's cancer was the reason why I drank. I know today that maybe it was something to do with it, but I'm an alcoholic, and I've got these 2 other symptoms. And those 2 other symptoms look like this. Page 444 of the big book outlines it perfectly in 1 paragraph. Jeff, if when you honestly want to, you cannot quit entirely, so what does that mean? What does that mean? Because trust me, I've quit about 2,800 times. I was good at quitting. But by 2 o'clock that same day, I was drunk. And then it says, Jeff, if when drinking you can't control the amount you take, so what does that look like? Renato. Montreal Canadiens. Vancouver Canucks. We're in the playoffs. I got to work tomorrow. You got to work tomorrow. We're only going to go for 1, 2, or 3 drinks. And we go. And we go watch this hockey game. And we have 1, 2, or 3 drinks. But what happens to me is that 1, 2, or 3, about 99% of the time, turns out to be 11, 22, or 33, and I'm just getting going. That's what qualifies me to be here. And then we have our third tradition. But I have an honest desire. My dad's cancer went away through treatment. It was relief. So it was a good day. So Fred shows up. Not a cloud on the horizon. I need to celebrate, so I need to drink. 1, 2, 3. 11, 22, 33. Now I can't stop. And I'm sitting there on the toilet was a huge discussion this weekend, huh? So I'm just going to play along and I'm going to bring it in too. So I'd wake up in the morning with this massive hangover, singing into the porcelain bowl, going to this higher power saying, I'm never going to do that. Please, just help me feel good, sort of thing. And then I would feel good, right? Because somehow I got food inside my body, a little bit of water, and sort of detoxing sort of thing. And then the brain once again says, must have been the chicken you ate the night before. Right? It's okay. The boys are going out tonight. Just take it easy, Only bring $50. Only have 1, 2, or 3. What happens when we have 1, 2, or 3? Laura talked about it at 3. We get right-sized. We get somewhat right-sized. And then 11, 22, or 33. Now I can't stop, and I'm missing Christmas. And this is the middle of summer. My life started to go extremely downhill, guys. So now I'm riddled with the disease of alcoholism. And it's a disease. They didn't call it back in the first and second edition, maybe even the third edition. No, second edition, because it wasn't a disease until 1956. 1956, the AMA, American Medical Association, looked at alcoholism and categorized it as a disease because it fits 5 criteria. I'm not going to rattle them off because I don't know what they are. Trust me, I want to know. And all I'm hearing in my brain right now is Marty J going, don't do it, Jeff, just don't do it. You're going to scream. You're going to throw the word flower in there or something like that. But I know one of them, it's progressive. When they say that your disease is being pushed from the parklands, because it is. I don't care if you have 50 years sober. I don't care if you have 21 years sober. I don't care if you have 30 days. It's there because it's progressive. And this is what the disease looks like. So come down this little road, because I'm going to be sort of this, I'm kind of using my hands right now. Oh, I touched the mic. I'm not supposed to. But anyways, suffering. I'm suffering, right? I'm not doing good. And the disease of alcoholism is getting me, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, right? But then we come to AA. Something happens when we walk through those doors of AA, and all of a sudden we're getting a little bit of unity, a little bit of service, and hopefully recovery. We start to sponsor people. We get sponsored. We start to communicate. We start to not be at the back of the room. And we start to overcome our disease of alcoholism. We get good. We get good. As the late, great Sandy B used to say, the good is the worst enemy of the best that there is. It actually comes from 1939 from Bill Wilson. But we get good and we stop doing what we need to do. I'm just going to stay home and watch hockey and tonight not go to my homework. Look what's happening. And then next week, I didn't go last week. It's okay, they don't miss me. March is there. He can take care of everything. Oh, I'm not going to do a constructive review at night. I'm beat. I'm tired. On awakening. I'm not really going to go to God. I'm good. I don't need to be divorced from self-pity and self-seeking and dishonest motives. You see what's happening here? In sobriety. Page 24 of our big book says that we don't have that mental defense against that first drink. We can't remember the humiliation, suffering of even a week or a month ago. And it says it riddled once again on page 43, the same thing, but it gives us a solution at the bottom of page 43. Disease come to get you. And when I was 14 years sober, that's what happened to me. 1999, my dad got cancer again. Cliff, you ready? It was terminal cancer. And I watched 230-pound man, beautiful blue eyes, lots of hair, become about 100 pounds, skin or bones, hunched over, about 5'7", dying. What does someone of our variety, or what does Jeff do when something like that happens? I need to not feel. I need the 1, 2, or 3. Actually, I need the 11, 22, or 33 is what I really need to do. And that's what I did. And I started to go down this path of a loneliness that I've never felt before. I couldn't be involved in my family. I couldn't be there. I couldn't watch this. I couldn't put that equation together that he's not going to be here in a few months. But somehow he got out of palliative care. And this was November of 1999. And he begged the doctors that he can go home so he can be with his beautiful wife and his 3 boys. And somehow my family found me and brought me home. And I got home and I got into that house. And I was riddled with the 4 horsemen. I was riddled with worry, remorse, and morbid reflection about what I was doing to that family, how I felt, what I said or didn't say, what I did or didn't do. I'm in the kitchen of that house, and I couldn't be there, so I had to leave. So I went into the living room, and I'm standing there by myself. I'm not good. Like I'm dying too. But there's this brown satchel wallet sitting on the table, and I look at it. It's my dad's wallet. I pick it up and I go through it because I have no money. And I pull 40, 50, 60 bucks out of that wallet, put it in my pocket, and I put it down, ever so sneakily and quiet. And I turn around, and there he is. Tears start going down his face. Son, why are you doing this? Son, how are you doing this? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. So I left. I just kept the money and I left. And I decided to go on a little trip. And that's where this backpack and this one shoe and that skateboard came in. And I found myself on the downtown east side of Vancouver. Now check this out. The downtown east side of Vancouver, Main and Hastings, is right in the middle. That's where the meat and potatoes is for homelessness. I was 1 block on the west side of Hastings. So I'm up Main Street. So I'm at Hastings and Columbia, and I'm looking at the people that are at Hastings, Main and Hastings, and thinking I'm not like them. I thought I was homeless living in the Hamptons. Yeah. Just crazy. My dad died December 1st of 1999. Same day, a year later, my my nana, died. I didn't know how to handle my dad's death. I'm already homeless. I'm already in this massive disease of alcoholism. I'm broken. I'm so lonely. I'm riddled with 6, 7, 13. You know the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco? If you've been to Vancouver, we got one too. It's called the Lions Gate Bridge. And if you look at that bridge, it's so majestic. There's so much heritage in that. Like the sweat and strength that went into building a magnificent bridge like that. It's beautiful and it's majestic. It's got 2 lions at the front of that bridge, you know, these proud lions. It's strong. It was the first week of December. I'm 30 years old. It was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night, and I'm standing in the middle of that bridge with my arms holding onto the railing, wondering how warm the water is. I couldn't live. When you jump off that bridge on low tide, you don't live. You don't survive. So obviously I didn't jump. Somehow I got off that bridge, and I don't know how I got off that bridge, and I found myself at my little brother's house an hour in Coquitlam, an hour away from downtown Vancouver. You guys showed me how I got off that bridge, and I'm going to jump ahead and just let you know how I got off that bridge, because I don't want to leave you hanging. I want to give some sort of spiritual oomph here right now. 1966, I had an uncle named Rudy. That's my middle name. When I was born, my mom said, you remind me of my little brother, Rudy. 1966. Rudy was 30 years old. He suffered from the disease of alcoholism. He owed a lot of not nice people a bunch of money. It was the first week in December. It was a Friday night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. He jumped off that bridge and died. How did I get off that bridge? By a power greater than myself and Rudy. The same age, the same disease, the same issues, the same loneliness. And he's like, little nephew, you don't have to do this. And he got me off that bridge. So I'm at my little brother's house. So my little brother, his profession is he's a personal trainer. And one of these guys that he trains is Corey W. And I use his last name as W for a reason. Because it protects our traditions. Corey W. is a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's almost like bartending or being a hairdresser or a barber. You just shoot the talk, the language, right? We just start talking. And Chris started talking to this guy. And Chris let him know about his older brother, Jeff. That he's a drunk and this and that and that and this. And Corey said, well, if you ever find him, bring him to me. Corey was the director of a treatment center. And obviously he found me because I'm at his house. And it was November of 2022. Ended up going to that treatment center. And but first Chris put me on restrictions. The people that have gone through the institutions or treatment centers, the whole restriction thing, you have to walk with 2 other guys to the store. You can't be by yourself. You can't use the phone. So he put those restrictions on me before I kind of even went there. So he kept me safe and protected to a degree because trust me, I wanted to go. I wanted to go back downtown. I wanted to go back and be one of the God's forgotten children on Main and Hastings. It's all I knew. It's the only way I could deal with life. And I had the best Christmas Eve to this day besides 3. Those other 3 are Jeffrey, Oliver, and Hazel. Never thought I was ever going to have kids. But the reason why it was my best Christmas and best Christmas Eve because I was in a facility with 50 men that were suffering from a spiritual malady, different 12-step fellowships, but suffering from a spiritual malady. And every time I opened that door to the hallway, there they were. I was no longer alone. And I have nothing against treatment centers, and I truly believe that we have an obligation and we have a responsibility to bridge the gap from treatment to AA. Because treatment is not AA, in my opinion. But I love what they do. But I also understand their business. They gave me a big book, my very first big book. It was the middle soft cover big book, and they told me to do. And so I did it. They said, here's a big book, go to your room and read it. So I sponsored myself. What does self-sponsoring mean? Eventually it means relapse, right? About 4 days later, I go to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and so we get off, the druggy buggy, and I walk through that door. I go, this story will blow you out of water. Like it is a story and a half. So I walk through those doors, and this guy with a big beard, black, matted galoshes, a pinstripe Oshkosh overalls, named Stan, put his hand out. And he said, welcome. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. My very first experience with AA. I mean, it happens all the time. But the last time someone said welcome to me was a long time ago. He wrote me in. And I walk inside that room, and over there what we have is this big table. We have a chairperson and a secretary. So the chairperson is the one that kind of runs the meeting. Calls people to share, whatever. The secretary does the seventh tradition and reads announcements sort of thing. I didn't know who this guy was, the chairperson, but the secretary. Chad T. When I was 19, Chad was the very first bartender that legally served me alcohol in a pizza joint. Chad was a man's man. He was like my dad, man. This guy had the gift of the gab. He was tall, dark, and handsome. And I wanted to be like Chad when I was in the bar scene. I wanted to grow up and be like Chad. But I watched Chad. Something happened to him. He lost the glow. And he disappeared, and I didn't know where he went. I always wondered where he went. He's secretary in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, 2 years of sobriety. My first experience with AA. Stan, the Santa Claus of AA, that's what he looked like, and Chad. And I didn't understand anything anyone said in that meeting. Why? Because it was a full-on Scottish meeting, and I had no idea. I couldn't understand their accents whatsoever. But I felt the language of the heart. There was something there. Even though I was unconscious to it, there was something there. There was something there that wasn't school, that wasn't a psych ward, that wasn't the bars. There was something there. And it's here. I feel it. March of 2003, sponsoring myself, going to the AA because I had to, because that's what we did when we were in treatment. The drink looked good. Alcohol's the problem. I'm 3 months sober. I'm okay now. Yeah. And I had one, and that one turned to two, and that two turned into 22, and that 22 turned into 44. The 44 turned into 88. But this time, you know, we all have a bottom, and I believe that all our bottoms have a glass bottom. You can see the one below it. It's there. But this was an emotional bottom. I didn't become homeless. I was about to. I could see it happening quickly, but it was more of an emotional bottom. I regained myself a little bit. Right inside that treatment center, we had this 4-step sort of thing, and you know, my dad was on the 4-step. Why? Because he didn't love me enough, or he didn't hug me enough, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and I got to forgive him between the 3rd and the 4th column, sort of thing, and look at where Jeff was to blame, sort of thing. So I got a little bit of relief on that first time through. But I relapsed, and that relapse was horrible. It sucked, and I started to lie. I started to do old beliefs and old behaviors. Page 119 of the 12 and 12 happened. Jeff, what's on page 119 of the 12 and 12? Well, let me tell you what's on page 119 of the 12 and 12. It's when Boy Meets Girl on AA campus. And her name was Brandy. This alcoholic, had to get involved with someone named after booze. And she's beautiful. And we have 3 kids today. But, like I mentioned at the beginning, we have a conscious uncoupling happening. Thank God for principle and thank God for love. Because what we're going through today is exactly what you don't really hear when this kind of thing happens. We support each other. It's time. There's a reason, season, of a lifetime. And we have all 3 because we have 3 kids. But that happened. So that relapse happened, and I got real bad again. And then it was August 15th at 10:10 at night was my last drink, and it was only a beer. And I was in treatment the next day. So this is what happened. I picked up the phone. Some guy, it must have been a newcomer, because he said, you should have got it the first time, and hung up the phone. And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. So I had Corey's personal cell number, so I phoned Corey, and he said, Corey W., and he said, come in, we're going to put you on the couch. There wasn't room, right? So they put me on the couch, and I started to do what they said. I started to learn how to brush my teeth and shower. I started to learn how to cook meal for 50 men. I started to learn how to wash dishes, and I started to go in this druggy bug and go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I knew what I needed to do this time, because that feeling I had with Stan and Chad, that first meeting, I knew I needed to sink my teeth into whatever it is that you guys had. You had something. I don't know what it was. You know, and I grabbed this sponsor, and he sponsored the way he sponsored, and there's no wrong way to sponsor, or is there? I don't know. That's a debate we can all have, but this is how fast I went through the first 3 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Literally. Jeff, are you an alcoholic? Yeah. Do you believe in a God? There's something. Get on your knees and pray, and we got into the 4th step. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I didn't have a clue about the 2 symptoms. I didn't have any idea about the willingness, about God's terms on page 28. Jeff, are you honest and willing enough to try to even seek this power that you don't know of? You know, and I had no idea about the root of my problem on the top of page 62. I had no idea about that decision on the bottom of page 62. And I was writing a 4th step. I suffered in AA for quite some time. I love that man. But I stayed sick with you people. I wasn't going to let you know. You know, I would never sit in the front row. I'd be in the middle just to hide out. I'd be in the back of the room. Jane's husband, James, he told me this when I was at a conference he was speaking at in Seattle. He said, Jeff, you know what we call the back of the room in Florida? I'm like, no, James, what do you call the back of the room in Florida? He goes, we call it the shoe section. That's where the slippers, loafers, sneakers, and runners hang out. That's where I was hanging out because it's closest to the exit door. And that's why the reason why we have those sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous at the back of the room to watch for people like me, so they grab onto their belt buckle and sit down, cowboy. And that's a Chris R. statement. Right? But that was me for 7 years in AA. You know, I had some sort of gift of the gab, and I can do a really neat 2-minute, 3-minute little pitch here and recite a little bit out of the big book, but not really honestly and not with any experience whatsoever. And I started to lie again. I started to do shady things. And I remember this one incident with a brand new baby, Jeffrey. I didn't name him. That would have been ego. My wife, Brandy, named him after me, I guess. But that was weird. But I remember he's a baby and he's sitting there, and then I'm like, I don't want to go to work. I didn't swear. No. It was just a right? I pick up that phone, and you know the old phones are connected to the wall, and if you pick up that phone and you start talking and you haven't dialed anything, what happens after about 30 seconds is the phone makes this real loud beeping. So I'm pretending the phone my boss, it's a construction job, and all of a sudden it starts beeping. I'm like, oh, poop. And Brandy's looking at me thinking I'm sick, and I'm phoning in sick, and she shakes her head. And says, you're lying to me. And I still try to get out of that. No, I don't know what happened. You know, all this kind of stuff, right? So that's how I started to live my life in AA. But I would show up. I'd go to about 3 or 4 meetings a week. I wouldn't sponsor people because I was full of fear about what if they die. And plus, I wasn't equipped. I didn't find the solution. And I wasn't armed with the truth and facts about myself. Bill C. from LA says you have to give it away to get it. You know how we say you have to give it away to keep it? Give it away to get it. So I wasn't getting it because I wasn't giving it away. Something happens. Something magical happens when you're sitting across the table from another suffering alcoholic. Something crosses between us. Bill and Bob, look at their story. Something crossed between them. Look when Evie just showed up at the front door and his eyes were like my dad's eyes. Something happened there, and that I wasn't doing. I was missing that experience. So I stayed, not just because of that, it's because I didn't even understand the disease of alcoholism. I just said I was an alcoholic because everyone else did. I thought alcohol was still the problem. So I was suffering and dying in AA, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and then something happened, and this guy named Charles S., and I always say this at the podium, I hope you meet this guy. Because he came and I say, Charles, remember when you beelined it to the back of the room because you saw me suffering? He probably didn't beeline it. Because he probably shook a couple hands on his way back there. His feet were probably not touching the ground. This is the type of guy this guy is. He just went to the back of the room, and then we locked eyes, and he introduced himself. He said, Jeff, my name's Charles. I'm like, Charles, I know who you are. Waiting for someone to do that. And he did it. And he said these words. He said, Jeff, are you willing to come to my house with your big book and this Monday night and allow me to take you through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I said, yes. And we went through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous for my very first time in 7 years of white-knuckling sobriety. And I had a massive, huge spiritual experience. My second time through treatment, I had a step 4. Hoagie's name was on there. My dad's name was on there. Why? Because he still didn't hug me enough. Why? Because he died. I have a resentment towards him, even though he wasn't. It was the cancer that did it, you know. He didn't throw the ball around enough, all that kind of stuff, right? And I worked through it as best I could. You know, but I would go to my mom's house in sobriety, and I'd be sitting there in the kitchen, and this is all my head would tell me is, look what you did to this family. Look what you did to your father. I remember when I was intoxicated, and I'm at St. Paul's Hospital where he passed away, and I'm walking down there, and he's shuffling with this pillow that he used to carry that used to help his back, this large pillow, and he'd be shuffling his little body down the hallway, and he would look up at me. I knew he didn't know who I was. He was done. But my head would say that my dad is saying, look what you're doing to me, Jeff. Look what you're doing to me. It's because of you I'm like this. This is what my brain is telling me. So in sobriety, writing these 4 steps and making amends, and this is what the amends look like twice. Our literature talks about it. In the 9th step is that we write a letter. How do you make amends to someone that's not around? The people we cannot see is we write a letter. So I did. My first time in treatment, when I got to step 9, sponsored myself, I wrote a letter, right? And I threw the letter away, and I got a sense of ease and comfort. They got it out, right? It was, I wasn't holding it within. But Christmas time, I'm sitting there with my family, my mom, my 2 brothers. I'm less than a year sober, and I'm struggling being there because of what I did or didn't do, what I said or didn't say around my father, around my mom, and around my 2 brothers. I had there was no fix. There was no spiritual experience that happened there, right? So the second time through, in treatment, same thing, but this time I decided to use magical words, big words, looking up in a dictionary, all this spiritual alchemy kind of wording sort of thing, and then I had a ceremonial burning of this letter over and above. And I got a sense of ease and comfort from this. May 1st, 2004 is my mom's birthday. I go there to celebrate my beautiful mom's birthday in sobriety. I'm sober. My 2 little brothers, or my little brother, my big brother are there. My big brother's partner's there. My little brother's wife's there. And I got itchy. I couldn't be in the same room. It's like being in the kitchen when my dad was dying, when he was out of palliative care. I couldn't be there. Because my voice, my head kept telling me that look what you're doing and still doing, or what you did to this family. But when Charles took me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, this is what he did when we got to the 4th step. We got a little bit deeper. And this is what we did between the 3rd and the 4th column, is where I got to look at it from an entirely different angle. And he said, Jeff, trust me, I'll keep going. So you got to let me know when. I didn't even press start on my timer here. So as far as I know, I still got an hour and a half. We get to the 4th column, Jeff, are you to blame? And before we did that, he said, Jeff, so your dad, he grew up in the 40s and 50s. I'm like, yeah. I go, so the mentality back there, sort of hypothetically speaking, was that the men work. The men work and the women stay home and raise children. You know, all that kind of stuff that I don't agree with today. And so he had the job. He was bringing home the money. And then in the early 80s, when Canada went through some sort of recession, he lost his job to a brand new kid that's fresh out of UBC University. And I'm like, yeah, he did. And he was really good at that job. It was a suit and tie job. And we struggled financially. And now it's in the recession and there's no jobs. You can't find a job. So, Jeff, can you picture what your dad's going through at this time? And meanwhile, he's not throwing the ball around with you. And you have a big resentment towards him. He goes, didn't your dad, you told me about your father that he went out and he got a job and he aced a realtor exam without studying. One of the hardest exams we have. And you got 100%. And became a realtor. But didn't you tell me that your dad is real quiet like you? And he's a salesman? Doesn't work. And isn't your dad brutally honest? And wasn't selling houses? Or buying houses? Because of his honesty? Because there's defects in those houses? He was really good at his job, but it backfired? I'm like, yeah. He goes, so imagine what your dad's going through right now. I got to see it from an entirely different angle. You know what Marty J calls it today? Instead of me being column 1-2, victimizing me and being the prosecutor, I got to be Dad's defense attorney at 7 years sober. And I got to forgive him and letting God's forgiveness of what my column 1, 2, and 3 were. Then we got step 8. Hoagie. How do I make amends to this guy? I go, Charles, I've been here twice. I wrote 2 letters. One of them was really good and really meaningful. And he looked at me and he said, what are you doing with the first 7? And then, what are you talking about? He goes, what are you doing with the first 7 proposals? What are you talking about? Bring the first 7 proposals into your 9th step, into your 8 and 9. And I didn't know you could do that. I had no idea you could do that. And he said, well, it kind of talks about it on the top of page 80. It gives us a simple equation that says you need to get consent. He's dead. Yeah, he is. But your mom isn't. It says you need to talk about it. And he goes, this is what me and you are doing right now. And the most importantly, it says, you go to God. So I went to God. This is where faith turns into trust. We all have faith. We agnostics is riddled with what faith is or what faith isn't. We all trust the God of reason. I was stuck on this bridge of reason. I couldn't step ashore. I didn't know how to step ashore until a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous put his hand stretched out in welcome. One of my favorite phrases in that book, besides all the other phrases in that book. I went to God. This is what happened. God, show me what you want me to do. Show me how you want me to be around this. Jeff, phone your mom. So I phoned my mom. Mom, is it okay to come over? I have something to talk about. Yes, son, I'm so grateful. I'm just so glad that I get to watch the news today. Come over. So I go over to my mom's house and I go knock on the door because I don't have keys. I walk through that door and then this voice says, look to your right. I look to my right and there's this beautiful pillow, a big, large pillow. Guess what pillow it is? Yeah, Hoagie's. I pick up that pillow and I go upstairs to the kitchen. My past experiences with the kitchen hasn't been good. And this voice says, look out the window. And I look out the window, and out the window of our house is this magnificent pool, this big pool that my dad dug, my dad Hoagie built with his own hands for his 3 boys. Beautiful. And I remember waking up on a Saturday morning and knowing where my dad is in the summertime. Because he's got a coffee in one hand and a pool vacuum in the other hand with a smile on his face. Getting that little pool ready for the kids, the neighborhood kids and his boys. And I see it. And it says, take your mom to the pool. So we go to the pool. Beautiful, clear, calm water. And I put the pillow down, and I sit on the pillow. My mom sits on the pillow, and I hold her hand, and I make direct amends to my dad through my mom. And it happened. I got free. 100% free. I got to make a real deep amends with my mom at the same time. And then I said these words, is there anything I missed? And she let me know. Faith. The next day I'm sitting at my house. Now there's little Oliver, one of my biggest teachers. He's around. So Jeffrey and Oliver, and then there's Brandy, and they weren't home. And I'm sitting there on the couch, and I hear this. Well, someone's at the door. So I get up and I open the door, and guess who's at the door? This is... I'm 8 years sober. This is 2011. It's my dad. He died in 99. He's about 6'3", 230 pounds, beautiful blue eyes. He looks so good. He walks in there and he says, son, I just want to see how you're doing. He walks inside that living room and he looks around and he says, I'm so proud of you. But there's things I need to do now and I have to go. And he walked himself up. Now, whether you want to call it a dream, whether you want to call it a vision, it was a spiritual experience that I had. And my faith turned into trust. Bob D talks about get in the wheelbarrow. I have faith they're going to make it. If you have trust, you'll get in the wheelbarrow. I trust my God today. Step 9. Okay, how it works is we're willing to go to any length, right? And then in step 8, it says we're willing to go to any length over victory of alcohol. Step 9, it turns, it switches, it dogs ears to the right or left, and it says that we're willing to go to any length to find a spiritual experience. My experience is this is where I lose the guys. This is where I lose them. It's in the 9th step because they get good. They get the jobs back after step 5. They get, page 119, 12 and 12 sort of thing. Or they get their kids back or whatever it is and they get good and the amends process starts to fall on the wayside. It starts to fall back. But I'm telling you, if you have done your amends, whether you're 10 days sober or 50 years sober and there's still guilt and there's still shame and there's still remorse around something, Keep trudging the road. Keep going, don't quit, because if I quit, you would have a different speaker today. I kept going, and God placed this magnificent man named Charles into my life to help guide me into this 9-step process. And I had a massive spiritual experience with Hoagie. I have the best relationship with my father today than I ever had in my whole life when he was alive. We are so close. I had this dream about a week later, an actual dream. And in this dream it said, go to the Richmond General Hospital. I don't mean hospitals. Go to the Richmond General Hospital. And in my dream I go to the hospital. And then there's this beautiful lady, about 100 years old, who's lived a beautiful, magnificent life, passing peacefully. But I noticed there's someone holding her hand. Someone that I could see through. And it was my dad. And this lady took her last breath. My dad looked up at me, and then he disappeared. So when he's at my house, saying that he's so proud of me, and then he leaves with, there's things I need to do. Guess what my dad does today? Guess what I truly believe my dad, Hoagie, does today? He gives service to people. He helps others. He helps people move on to the next stage of whatever the life is, whatever the beingness is. That's what my dad does today. Oh, there's more. You know, Marty last year probably talked about Shrek. Dwayne, I got to hang out with that guy for a weekend. Everything he says about Dwayne is true. I got to see it happen. We went to a conference and Dwayne Shrek had his own personal elevator. I don't even know how he got that, but he did. He had his own elevator. I'm like, how do you get down here so fast? He goes, come here with me. And there's big Shrek, and he takes me to this other, like, how do you get this stuff, Dwayne? But 54 years of sobriety, and he passed away February 7th, 30 minutes before Marty's 45th year of sobriety. Yeah, I think Shrek did on purpose. But I'm sitting in my office, and I get the news, and I go to God, because it's what I do today, is I go to God, and I go to God. I turn to my right, and I say, God, Dwayne just passed, and Marty's going to go through a grieving process. Allow him to grieve the way he wants to grieve, but be there for him, and I know you are, and let us love him, and allow Marty to do whatever it is he needs to do. Dad, I know what you do. You're going to meet a hero. Please have your hand stretched out and welcome when Dwayne comes there. And in my prayer, instant craving for coffee. And there's a Starbucks down the road from my office. So I lock the office up. I get into my truck. I turn out the parking lot of where my office is. I turn left, and I get cut off by this white Mercedes. And I slam on my brakes. And what do? Instant reaction is, catch our breath, whatever it is, and get the license plate down. I look at the license plate. Guess what the license plate says? One guess. Hoagie. I was doing a talk in Portland, Oregon in 2022, right after COVID, at Rule 62. And I'm sitting there. So Oliver, the middle boy, he's got anaphylactic allergies. Peanuts, tree nuts, almonds, figs, fish, all this stuff. So we have to watch what we eat. We have to watch all the ingredients, all that kind of stuff. So I'm down there with Brandy. I finish this talk, we're like, let's splurge. Let's just get riddled with nuts and fish and have seafood, all that kind of stuff, sort of thing. So we do, and I put into my phone or onto the Navi system in my truck, and it says, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. Recalculating, kind of like Al-Anon, that sort of thing. And sorry, Al, we love you, Al-Anon. But I'm starting to get disturbed. I can't find this restaurant. It's a red light. And I hit the steering wheel. And Brandon's like, what's going on? I go, I don't know. Let's just go back to the hotel and get pizza. I can't find this place. I'm starting for some reason getting bothered by it. And she looked at me. She goes, you're right where you're supposed to be. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, look at the street name. Yeah, Hoken Avenue. It doesn't stop there. There's probably about 5 or 6 deep things where my dad shows up and says, son, it's okay. We got you. How much more time do we got here? Half an hour? I got lit up in AA after Charles. I started to study this book. I started to learn so much from this book. I started to get so much knowledge from this book. I have so much knowledge with this book that I know on page 95, line 2, words 6 and 7 are thank you. Look it up. And I also know that on page 149, lines 31, words 9 and 10 are you're welcome. It's in there. But I got on fire for this program, for this design for living. But it got me because I became, like Sandy Beach used to say, animal mechanical. I gathered so much knowledge. You know, if we ever had like a quiz on what the big book says, don't go against me because I'll beat you. I was like that. Like started to get 14 years sober. I started to get sick again in AA because I was starting to lack spiritual experiences. Because I know the 2 words that will kill an alcoholic. I know. And I was like, Mars, how am I going to tell this part of my story? And he says, don't worry, God will let you know. Because something happened to me. Something that happened to me that is a step 1 experience at 14 years sober that I wish no one in this room will ever get. But I'm so grateful that it happened to me. How do I describe this without breaching anonymity of people, places, and things? I was sitting in a meeting, and there was a big book. It wasn't mine, but something said, open the big book. And in there was a bunch of female signatures. And welcome. We are glad you're here. So that book was given to the newcomer at a women's retreat that my friend Katie P. was doing. And in there, what stood out for me in a blue ink, like a highlighter ink, said, page 206 saved my life. So I go to page 206. It's Marty Mann's story. Women suffer too. In the top of page 206 it says, I found myself in a situation that filled me with a raging and righteous anger. I'm 14 years sober. I'm in this structure. There's people around. Things are coming at me. I'm Mr. Mechanical AA, not knowing it. I'm suffering once again in AA. My disease has reached, it's doing push-ups in the parking lot, now it's in the same room as me. I'm egoic. I'm fearful. In this structure, there's free alcohol. A lot of free alcohol. And someone was coming at me, and I got filled with a raging and righteous anger. Now let me say it again. A raging and righteous anger. I have never felt this way, pre-sobriety or in sobriety. I didn't even know this type of anger existed inside me. And then my brain snapped. And my brain said, you need to do what this person's doing to you. There's a whole bunch of alcohol in here. It's 20 feet behind you, Jeff. You need to go drink. And I said, yeah, I do. So I push that stool I get off that stool and I push it behind me. And I think of this. My wife. I think of Joffrey. I think of Oliver. Then I think of Hazel. Or my daughter. She was 2. And I said, they're going to suffer. And my brain said, yeah, they will, but you need to go and do this. And the reason why I bring that up is because no human power. So I'm in sobriety. I have found the solution to alcoholism. You know, I have this design for living that I'm not practicing, obviously, to the best of whatever it is. And I look in, especially Hazel, at her. You're going to suffer, daughter, and I'm so sorry. I have a little business at the time, so it's not like I need to rifle through a wallet. The money's there. And I start walking. Start walking to the icebox. And my brain is still going, and it says, oh, it's Friday night, just go back to your home group on Monday. Okay, that's my plan. Then you do this for 2 days with unlimited amount of funds. Renato, yeah. Do you think I'm coming to our home group? Yeah, it ain't happening. The bridge is going to happen. But I'm not thinking this because I don't have the mental defense. I can't remember. the humiliation, suffering of even a week or a month ago. How it works, this is a sideline, how it works. There's this paragraph in there in how it works. It says, remember, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. I'm asking you, what is the most biggest word in that phrase? Is it? Is it? If you're a real alcoholic, you won't remember. They're all big words. But my disease won't allow me to remember how cunning, baffling, and powerful it is. I won't remember the humiliation. I won't remember the hoagies. I won't remember my moms. I won't remember the homelessness. I won't remember the bridge. I won't remember that when I have one, I end up having 33. Remember. And I didn't. At that time, at 14 years sober, I didn't remember. I knew there was suffering. I knew there was something bad. So I walked. Walking, I think 5 feet away from this alcohol, and I found myself 20 feet past this alcohol inside a bathroom looking at myself in the mirror. My sponsor today, Marty, calls it a whiteout. I had a whiteout. I don't remember going from when I thought about that, going to my home group in 2 days, and I'm sitting there in the bathroom, and my eyes locked at my own reflection in that mirror, and I started to shake and cold sweats, and then it happened. God showed up, and I heard this voice, and this voice said, you can go do that, Jeff, or you can come find me. And if you were there, you would have heard this voice too, and I white-knuckled it that night. You know, on the bottom of page 43, it says that except in a few rare occasions. Is this one of those rare occasions where I based sobriety on self and white-knuckled it? Like Bill's story, fear sobered me up a bit. Or was God always there? Is there really a rare occasion? I truly believe there isn't. Because I'm 100% powerless over this disease. And God is doing what He does for me. You know, God is doing for us what I cannot do for myself. And I got home and He kept me safe and protected as I locked myself into my room that night. And I pretty much just spun the globe and found the Richmond Roundup the next day. And I went to the Richmond Roundup like this, looking good, my friend, with my big book tucked under my arm. And I walked there, and I'm not going to let you people in that I almost died the night before, that I almost harmed my 3 kids the night before, that I almost stole from my wife the night before. I'm not going to let you people this, but I knew I needed to be there. I needed to change. Something needed to happen. I sat there at this round table that no one was sitting in because I needed to isolate myself, and all I wanted to do is try to hear the music of AA that I couldn't hear, you know, that I wasn't able to hear based on self. And I'm sitting there, and this guy named Tim W., looking like me with a suit and tie on, and he comes and sits down, and he says, hey man, how you doing? My name's Tim. And we start talking about nothing, talking about something, talking about whatever it is that we were talking about, right? And then all of a sudden, Marty J., my sponsor today, wearing a suit and tie, comes and sits down, and he knows Tim W. He knows him, and they start talking. They bring me into this conversation a little bit, you know. They're talking about old times, fun times, what's new, all that, how's the relationships and everything. But they're bringing me in, you know. They're kind of keeping me engaged in all this stuff. And then another guy in a suit and tie. This guy is built like an ox. I don't even know if he is, but there's something powerful about this guy. A guy named Lyle P., who wrote Grounded in the 4th edition of the Big Book, comes over, and he knows Marty, and he knows Tim, and they start talking, and it's just me. And this table didn't have a reserve sign for the speakers or nothing like that. It's just a table, and I'm sitting there. And then I'm going, what's going on here? Then I remember I was in the bathroom the night before, and I said, you can come find me. And I go to AA, and God put 3 heavy hitters in front of me, and there are no heavy hitters in AA, but trust me, there are heavy hitters in AA. There's some people that we can hear. There's some people's music that there's a whole orchestra instead of just a beautiful violin or a piano. And this is what these 3 meant to do, and they brought me in. So the chairperson of that roundup, Miss Jenny B., who passed, we love this woman. She said, we have a treat for you. We have a guy named Tim W., Suitman #1 from Portland, Oregon. He's going to tell his story. He's a descendant of Chuck Chamberlain. That's in his lineage, and he brought that kind of a talk into this talk, and it blew me out of the water. I can't relate to some of the things, but I can relate to a lot of the things he talked about. You know, all those similarities. And I'm sitting down, and I'm like, what is going on here? I'm having a spiritual experience. And then she goes, okay, we have a treat for you. A local Marty J. is going to do a talk on 6 and 7. He pushes his chair out. This guy's 41 years of sobriety at the time. He's about to get on stage, and I grab his jacket. I tug on it. I go, how are you going to do this? It's only 14 lines in the Big Book. Yeah. I'm so sick. And I'm calling out this guy that's 41 years old, that he can't do this. 41 years sober, he can't do this. He gets up to the podium and he introduces himself. My name is Marty J. I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's how I introduce myself today. It's exactly the same way. And he said, it's a real honor and a privilege to speak in AA. And he said, some handsome young man just came up to me and said, how are you going to do this? It's only 14 lines in the big book. And he looked at me and said, watch. That was 2017. If that conference wasn't over, he wouldn't even be in step 7. There's not enough time. Step 6 and 7 for me today is like being on an iceberg. You see it. You get the tip. You think you know. Think you know. You think you know. The objectionables, the humbleness, the going to God. All that stuff below, all that experience below that I haven't seen yet, I haven't felt yet, I haven't experienced yet. Joe and Charlie, I love it what they say. 6 and 7 are the tools to get to Dr. Paul O's story of acceptance on page 417. It's true. Trust me. How many of us, based on self, can get to acceptance? How many of us can be like Elsa on and Frozen and let it go? You can't. I can't do that. All I'm doing is stuffing underneath the carpet or stuffing underneath the couch. 6 and 7 help me to get to acceptance. He blew me out of the water. And then, of course, Lyle P. grounded Blue Skies. Mr. Blue Skies went up and told his story. I'm just like, wow. And the very next day, Marty J. started to sponsor me. And I'm sitting across the table from him at Starbucks, starting to go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in a new way. I know a lot. Remember, I know the 12 steps of AA. And he said these words to me. Jeff, I'd rather sponsor a new guy than you. What? Marty, don't you know page 125 tells us we're sensitive people? Why would you say those words to me? And then the truth came out. Jeff, you know so much stuff. I've seen you talk in our meetings. You have the gift of the gab. You have a nice little 3-4 minute little pitch there, but you know so much stuff. So what I'm asking you to do, and this is where Don Pritz comes into, because he had something to do with this sort of prayer, was you got to set aside everything you think you know about the big book. Sponsorship. 12 steps of AA. Alcoholism. And God. So you can have a new experience and remain teachable. I'm like, yeah, I do. And I had a massive experience with this guy. Just like Charles, but in a different way. This is more of an emotional sobriety experience. There's so many things that I thought I knew that I didn't know. It's not what Jeff, it's not what you don't know that will kill you. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Just ain't so. We walked through the 12 steps of AA and step 2, and I love step 2. Step 2 and 3 is God. Ooh, Jeff said it, that word, that 3-letter word, God. All I know about God is broad. God is roomy. God is all-inclusive. Never exclusive or forbidding. Page 46 of the big book. I've never seen that before. In 14 years of sobriety until Marty J. showed me. I didn't understand the bridge of reason. I didn't understand how often I based my life on thought. I didn't understand the depth of 6 and 7. I didn't understand the disciplines of 10 and 11. Because my 10 and 11 was, I'm thinking right before I go to bed, and I do a constructive review of my thoughts. What does constructive mean? Can I be really that constructive based on self and thought? What does meditation mean? I urge you to get a 1936 to 38 dictionary, Webster's dictionary, and look up the word meditation. Look up the word brainstorm. Because it doesn't mean what Disney now makes it mean. It's a sudden mental outburst. Brainstorm. It's not good. Meditation is contemplation and thought. Wow. So if I can bring 6 and 7 and bring this power into me while I'm doing my constructive review at night, and especially on awakening when I'm asking to be divorced and self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives before I think about the 24 hours ahead, and bring the proper attitude. On the top of page 86 is proper attitude. What is the proper attitude? This equation is saving my life. This equation found on page 55 is saving my life right now. And it will save yours. It's the proper attitude. When things are coming at you and things are sensitive, if you're going through a divorce and you don't know what's happening here, and there's so much love, and you're selling your dream home, all this stuff. Page 55 says, set aside prejudice. Set aside everything you think you know about all this. Because what happens is I now have a channel. Cliff, I now have a channel from my heart to my thoughts. My thought life is placed on what? A higher plane. Because I'm using my heart. Deep down within is some sort of idea of a God in every man, woman, and child. The equation on 55, set aside prejudice, opens that broad highway. Now I get to think honestly. And when I think honestly, because God gave us brains to use, and I search diligently within myself, meaning the beingness, be awake in the beingness of how God wants you to be, because my God doesn't want me to do anything. What attributes does your God need to have in order for you to trust your God? What a beautiful question. Step 2 stuff. Step 3 stuff. When I say the word God, just replace it with love. Because my God is love. What attributes does your God need to have in order for you to trust your God? Loving, kind, compassionate, pure. For me, humorous. Because I love comedy. Humorous. Be that. So when that equation on 55, when I've set aside prejudice, and now I'm thinking honestly because I'm using that broad highway that's connected to my heart. I'm in step 6. I'm not even at step 7 yet. I'm not even in God. I'm not in prayer. I'm in meditation. I'm in step 6. And I'm figuring out the objectionables because I'm stuck on the bridge of reason. I'm stuck on the bridge of reason. I can't step ashore. I'm stuck in thought and I can't step ashore. So I use that equation so I can step ashore, at least have the willingness and can see that, I can step ashore. I get to and I don't have to. I get to cheerfully, page 133, cheerfully capitalize on this that's coming at me and go to God so my God can demonstrate His what? His omnipotence, His power. And what happens? When that little equation on 55 is done, you know what happens? Bottom of page 19. What's in the bottom of page 19? It talks about real tolerance. We think real tolerance. Real tolerance of what? Other people's shortcomings. Other people's defects. Their views and opinions. I get to respect them. I don't have to agree with them, but I get to respect them. And now I get to serve. How can I best serve thee? How can I best serve the situation that Jeff's little sensitive life is in right now? The attributes: kind, loving, respectful, compassionate. Feelings are meant to be felt. They're just don't act on them. Because trust me, when I'm sad, I can act out in hurt, remorse. I can act out in threat. I can act out in all these defects that our fourth step talks about. A buddy of mine from Toronto, this is during COVID, cancer's in the house. She was diagnosed with cancer. I lost a sponsee named Chad. Chad went to Thailand and he had a toothache and he decided to take some street T3s, Tylenol 3s, and he came back home and he was different. There's something changing in this guy, and I'm sponsoring him, and I'm like, All I know, Chad, is let's go to God together about this. Let's go to God. And he looked at me and he said these words. He said, Jeff, I'm a human. I need a human thing right now. Don't bring this God stuff in me. In 2 weeks, he was dead. He was dead. OD'd. Drank and OD'd. A guy from Toronto sitting in my office. I have a Chuck Chamberlain chair. I just call it a Chuck Chamberlain chair because I've heard he's got this awesome chair that he sits in. So I have one too. And COVID, cancer, relationship renovation, that is kind of there and started. My own sobriety, business is struggling, all this stuff. And he looks at me and he goes, Jeff, how are you doing this? How are you not going crazy, or how are you not drinking? He's there to bury his brother who died from alcoholism. And I said, I'm not doing it. God is. God's doing it all. You know? Jim, Fred, man of 30. Even the jaywalker. They all relapsed. One of them jumped in front of fast. Here's the progressiveness of our disease. Let's look at the jaywalker for a quick second. I know I got about 10 seconds left, but anyways. The jaywalker jumped in front of a car. Progressiveness. Fire engine. Progressiveness. Buses. You see the progressiveness in that? Jim, Fred, and the Man of 30. The Man of 30 comes from Peabody's book. It's not real. Jim is. You know, the Bridge of Reason, the Step Ashore, is a guy named Fitzmayo. But those three people all relapsed. The Man of 30 died in 4 years. Why? They all made a beginning. They all heard step 1. They all heard step 2, meaning there was a solution. But they all relapsed because of 24 and 43. Because they're powerless over alcohol. And the reason why any one of us will relapse in this room is because we failed to enlarge our spiritual life. Period. It's not because Hoagie passed away. It's not because, the bike rack, picking my bike from the dumpster. It's not because of this or that. It's because I have a disease of alcoholism, and the only way it can get arrested or contingent on my spiritual exactly is brain fart there, but is through spiritual experiences. So if Jeff just maintains, the disease gets big, grow, have new experiences. I can't live off, Mark Houston can't live off yesterday's dinner today. Have something new. And I'll end it with this. There's a guy named Jim C. Jim is not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but he's a real funny guy. Try to put those together. Yeah. He said this to me. Jeff, how far back do you have to go to find glory? What a good question. When you go to your meetings and someone reads how it works and it says, may you find him now, if you missed it, you got to go a little bit farther back. Thank God we have step 11. Thank goodness we have step 11 for on awakening. Because when I wake up in the morning, I get to be free. I get to go to this God. Trust me, the other week I woke up in Mr. Barista self. Page 30 of our big book, more about alcoholism, says we had to concede to our innermost selves. It's plural. It's plural. It doesn't say self, plural. Why? Because I have so many egoic personalities or characters within inside me. And I woke up a couple of weeks ago and Mr. Barista self showed up knocking on my door saying, wake up, you have a busy day today, go downstairs and make real strong coffee. And I'm like, I'm so tired, I need to go do this. Do you see what I'm forgetting to do? Or do you see what I'm not doing? Is I'm not going to this God. And I'm letting this coffee freaking guy run my life. And now I'm going to get jacked up on coffee, speed to the office, and probably write nasty emails before phoning my sponsor, before pressing send. I get to go to God. How far back do you have to go to find glory? If you missed step 11 in the morning, I offer for your consideration is to phone your sponsor and say, hey, let's do a written 4-step together. That's what I got. Thank you so much for listening.